So today we're going to talk about making a couple of pallet fences. Basically a very quick and easy and cheap, well, it can also be free way of making yourself a fence. Now there's a lot of reasons why you might need a fence. Obviously if you're wanting to keep wildlife out in terms of foxes or rabbits or such like, you'd need a more significant fence than what we've got here. But what I'm going to do with these fences, which I sort of cut to a particular height, is it's more going to be, well, firstly, it's a sort of windbreak. So there's a lot of westerly wind that comes in on my allotment, and it can wreak quite a lot of havoc as it's particularly sitting on a hill as well. So, you know, there's not a lot of wind block in allotments as it's usually vegetation as opposed to trees. So I'm going to be putting in these type of pallet fences mostly for wind block. It's also got a sort of aesthetic side to it as well, if you're that way inclined. It's quite handy in sort of dividing up your different sort of parts of your allotment or what have you, or maybe you want to redo a border between yours and a neighbour's. There's a lot of reasons to do it. Basically, the idea with this is I've cut the actual sort of pallet bits 4 deep, and essentially they're all made out of units like this here. So what I've done is quite simply I've cut along so this edge here. Again, I've counted 4 of these up. It helps if you've got the same type of pallet, if you're going for a longer design, just so that they all match up. It's easier to build as well when all the bits match. So in essence, I've just come in right under where the next one of these doubled up beams would be going in, and I've just gone straight along the way to the other side. The other advantage of this design, alongside being rather simple, is that you can actually get it to be quite steady. Now these are freestanding right now. The reason I've left the back ones in is because that's where you could be thinking about putting some types of supports. So in this case you'd be getting posts, banging them in like so that they're flush with the bottom there. Try to get along these type of squares because they've got a better surface area. Also try and sort of sit stuff in the kind of nooks that you find available, because that gives it a little bit of better grip. And in essence we'll be putting nails in along those boards there. Now the other thing that's quite handy to do is if you hang on to some of your offcuts, which I've left over here, but I'll go get them. Essentially, one thing that's quite handy as well, one of the sort of difficult bits if you're laying out a more extensive type of fence, is getting it straight. Now there's obviously quite a few different ways, sort of slow ways, getting your tape out and such like, but one easy way is essentially this is the type of beam that I cut off the other one. Now what I've done, these are usually 3 long, but they're 2 different ones. I've cut it down to 2 for the simple reason that when it comes to the overlap between, you could actually put one of these in here, and then if you can sort of flush it against one of these. Now what that does, if you give it a sort of hammer down, you'll notice it'll allow you to straighten your fence a little bit more while you're working on it. It also gives it a sort of stronger connection in between your panels, because you don't only want to be giving it support from the top down, you want to be giving it across. And the reason I didn't make that any longer is the one compromise is that on this particular bit here, you obviously can't put a post down because it won't be going into the ground. However, there's different ways that you could look into going around that. It's quite simply, you'll only be putting them on half every one of these posts. So if you put one of these sort of interlocking bits, that still leaves you for one more post that you can put here. So in essence what you've got as a sort of model is, for every pallet, we'll start with this one here, you've got from your middle plank leftwards and linking up to the second one, that's your sort of in between horizontal bit, and then right after that you'll be putting in your vertical beam. which you can then mallet into the ground for extra support. After which, get another one of these in. Try and get it as flush as you can with the other square, and you just basically continue along. So there would be a potential second one, for example. Now, what I would recommend as well, might be stating the obvious, but well worth it still. When you're making your posts, make them bigger rather than smaller, and then hammer them into the ground first. And after that, once you're quite sort of comfortable with how steady it'll be, it'll depend on what kind of ground you've got, and such like. You can always trim these off the top to make it sort of level. And another thing you can do, if you so happen to have diagonally cut bits of wood, is obviously if you cut it to size, this example one is like really long, but I just literally picked it off the ground there, is you can put diagonal supports behind your fence. Depending, obviously, the sort of negative trade-off with that is you start using up a certain amount of space behind your fence, because obviously you've got the diagonal in there that's giving it the support. But you can actually, with a similar type of angle here, don't know if you can see it too well, there you go, flush that up against here, and then if you leave another tip in the ground, basically both of them pointing the same way, you can have the top end. So let's say this one here, that'll be the one that will be going up against your fence, and then the bottom side will actually be going as a point into the ground. In this case, it kind of helps if you put the ground side in first if you can, and then sort of push it back up against the fence. Again, that's if if you're doing quite a long fence and you don't want to have any weak spots and you're dealing with a lot of wind. That's definitely one way to go about it. The other one being, obviously, if you're looking to do corners, a corner to a fence will give it a lot more support. But again, that very much depends on what it is you're actually doing. So in this sense, put a post in right here, and then hope that stays standing with us for a short while. There we go. You can actually connect these two together with a screw, make a fairly hard shoulder. If you want to actually have a more sort of cosmetic look, what you can actually do is, if you cut along here and practically remove this corner, you can actually get this corner here to slot into that, because you've obviously cut it from there onwards, and then you wouldn't have that kind of gap on the side as well. I've not done that for the simple reason that I'm only going to be doing a lengthway fence as opposed to a corner fence. But there you go, that's a sort of quick, simple and easy way to start fencing off an area. Thank you for watching.